Hi there, good evening, and welcome to another session where we sit down together and talk about the upcoming exam. So, good evening for to those who are joining in just now. We've gathered to talk about the next exam on our radar, which is nothing other than SNAP. So, we will focus on the grammar questions today. So, you remember when we met a couple of days ago, the focus area was vocabulary. Then, in the interim, you also had a session that went on to talk about uh, the reasoning, the verbal reasoning based areas, the verbal reasoning based questions in the SNAP exam. And today we plan to basically focus on grammar. So let's start with a quick review. But before that, if you are new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe to it. My name is Vikrant. I am your personal coach for all things related to English and communication. So here is a brief bit on the paper pattern for those of you who haven't bothered to check it yet. 60 minutes, 60 questions divided into 3 subsections. There is no sectional time limit, there is no sectional cutoff. Marking scheme is +1 minus 0.25, and the division is 15 questions which are pure English, 20 questions which are quant DIDS, and then 25 reasoning based questions. And when you look at these reasoning based questions, some of these questions are kind of, I would say, English questions, because areas like syllogisms, critical reasoning, statement assumption, statement conclusion, these are the things that we go ahead and study more in English. So in reality, I would say that your English classes will end up having an impact on somewhere around 20 to 25 questions overall for an exam like the SNAP. And here is a further analysis of the exam that we had last year. Here is the breakdown. So, exact same composition across all the 3 slots, more or less similar difficulty level as well. But as you can see, when it comes to English, the difficulty level consistently was easy. Most of the questions were doable. Even the grammar questions that were asked were questions which were more or less very formulaic, very standard grammar that you would typically expect to see in an aptitude exam. And if I specifically dive into English, we had 4 questions from fill in the blanks. Now you know that fill in the blank questions can be either vocabulary based or grammar based. So the 4 questions that we had in the exam were actually grammar based. So they essentially tested our understanding of prepositions and tense. Then there was this one error identification question that tested our understanding of tenses even further. There was one reported speech question, and similarly, there was one identifying part of speech question. So when I say reported speech question, we're talking about direct speech, indirect speech, right? So that was a bit, and then parts of speech is an area which has more or less been fairly regular in the exam. Okay. Uh, So when I say fairly regular, in most of the years they'd either give you a word and ask you for its part, word in a sentence, and they ask you for its part of speech, or they may. But something that happens more frequently is where they give you 4 sentences. All the 4 sentences use a particular word, and they ask you for the part of speech of that particular word in each one of those 4 sentences. So they give you a table, and it's more of a matching exercise. Last year we had a direct indirect speech question, but then they can also give you a question based on active voice and passive voice. Additionally, there are quite a few grammar foundation questions that you typically see in the exam. So part of speech is just one of those questions. They can actually ask you to identify modal auxiliary verb. They can ask you to identify subject or object in a given sentence. In the past, they have even asked us to identify the type of sentence, the type of phrase, the type of clause that was present within a sentence. And then there was a question that was based on conditional sentences. You can, uh, from a conceptual academic purpose, you can probably put it with tenses. but then it's an extension of that. And one question which does not really find a mention here, they gave us a poem with a few sentences and they asked us to choose the sentence where uh, the various parts of the sentence were given in a standard order. So that in a way tested our understanding of syntax, the order of various things. So for example, in declarative sentences, you know that we have subject and then we get a verb and then there is an optional object. Wherever we have a helping verb, this is where it goes. When you have adjectives describing a noun, they would typically go before them. If they are adjective phrases or clauses, they typically come afterwards. In case you introduce adverbs, then different adverbs are also supposed to follow a certain sequence. Remember, adverb of frequency comes before the verb, whereas adverbs of manner, place, time, purpose, etc., come after the verb in a particular sequence. So, those are the kind of things that clarity is something that they may seek in the exam from us. So that's the kind of paper it really is. Deepak has how and from where to cover the vocab in less time. Deepak, if you are talking about less time, meaning time starting from today, we have 7 days. So in 7 days, you can do 7 days worth of vocabulary, no more, no less. It is a pure knowledge based area, and therefore there are no real shortcuts to it. But I hope most of you have already been working on vocabulary. You've gone on to build a decent amount of vocab. If you haven't started today, in 7 days, just go ahead and acquire 7 days worth of vocab, right? So normally I say that okay, you are supposed to devote 20 to 30 minutes to vocabulary every day. Probably for the next 7 days, you can devote an hour every day, maybe 60 to 90 minutes every day. That's basically all that we can. Okay. Kush, the cutoff last year for SIBM Pune campus, and I'm sure somebody or the other can also correct me, I think it was around 43 or 44. So that's what you're targeting in the SNAP exam. And there are no individual section percentiles here, really. Good evening, yes. Namaskaram, Varun and Atashi. Difference between American and British English was also, oh, yes, 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 absolutely. Uh, Yeah, I mean, you remember we do see this difference between British and American English all the time in spellings. So this is American English, whereas British English would basically use color, and then it also seeps into the individual words. So you notice what is called lift is called an elevator in British English. What are called pass marks in British English are called passing marks in American English. Those kind of things. But then, frankly, I don't really think that you should worry much about it. Shouldn't worry much about British versus English. There are so many subtle differences. It'll be difficult to go through all of them. This is more of, I'd say, a GK question than an English question. So what if it is a part of the GK section? So don't worry about it. Purba, what is conditionals? Okay, conditionals is a nickname, प्यार से दिया हुआ नाम to something that is called conditional sentences. So these are sentences that give you a condition which is typically prefaced by if, and then it also happens to have another clause that talks about the outcome of that condition. And you are supposed to be aware of the grammatical construction of each one of the four different conditional sentence types. So that's basically where it comes from. Pratham, no blind guesses, obviously. Yaar. So if you are fairly confident of your answers, go ahead and mark those. Otherwise, you should not. Kush, I think SIBM would also have worked for that, but it's okay. Yeah, when it comes to HR, SEM HRD does have a little edge. Then Nataji Abhirami, sir, how to what? Shardul, does the negative marking affect a lot? Shardul, it starts affecting a lot when your accuracy rate dips below 70%. As long as your overall accuracy is above 70%, preferably above 80%, it does not really make much of a difference. But the moment you go below that, you will have an issue. Abhinami, poem-based questions are relevant for that. Here, although they give you a poem, their concern is still more about grammar. So just focus on grammar, and that should take care of even the poetry part of Snap. And even otherwise, I think it's a good idea to start reading poems now. Okay, so let's go ahead, work on some questions together. Here is the first one where I will test your understanding of parts of speech. So here's a sentence. Can you go ahead and identify the conjunction in the sentence? Let us see what you choose. The moment I get 5 answers, I will start talking about it. In case you have a question, issue, concern, please make sure that you too send it my way. Oh, yes, all of you are already pretty confident of this. So it is indeed C. Those of you who could not see this, you notice that there are two clauses. I was taking a shower, the doorbell rang. Now, you cannot have two clauses without a conjunction in a single sentence. The only way to connect two clauses is, I shouldn't say only, there are just two ways to connect them. You either use a conjunction or you bring in the semicolon. Otherwise, you really cannot have it. So when is indeed the right answer? Here is the next one. Okay. Dishant is the first one to share the answer. So is Pranav, Nidhi, and Ria. Yeah, Nidhi and Ria remember from our class yesterday. Sonali too, Vesh. Manshita as well. You are supposed to share the question number in order to avoid that confusion. Where I do not know which. Oh, Nandita, na, 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 na. Now it gives you the time of an action, right? The Supreme Court must now come up. When should it come up? Now. So this is an adverb of time. So the correct answer, as most of you have given to me, is D, authoritative. Well, if I look at it technically, I see one more adjective in this sentence. Can you tell me in the comment the other adjective which is present here? And in the interim, just to give you the definition once again, adjective. The D here is silent, so we call them adjectives. Adjectives are those words that go ahead and describe a noun or a pronoun. They tell you something more, or they add to the meaning of a noun or a pronoun. So the other word, if you look at it technically, that acts as an adjective here is supreme. Absolutely, yes, Purva Sayan. Srish Pranav, you absolutely spot on, man. Here is the next one. Okay, so before I give you the answer of question number 3 and before you share it, I would ideally like to talk a little more about adverbs because this is where I see a lot of people making mistakes. Okay, so what exactly is an adverb? So in the previous question, I went on to describe an adjective for you. Adjective is something that adds to the meaning of a noun or a pronoun, something that describes or modify a noun or a pronoun. Now, adverb, if I were to define it in simple terms, is a word that modifies anything other than a noun or a pronoun. So to start simple, a lot of people think adverbs are words that describe just verbs. That isn't correct. Adverbs are words that describe a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. Now, this is the high school definition. If you move a little ahead, you would realize that adverbs can also describe entire sentences at times, in which case you call them sentence adverbs. And that is why the definition that I prefer is adverbs are words that describe anything other than a noun or a pronoun. So there you go. Okay. Now, adverbs that describe the verbs, they typically give you an answer of how, when, where, why, or even how often. So when you ask any of these questions about a verb, the answer that you get is going to be an adverb. So the adverbs that correspond to how often are known as adverbs of frequency. This is manner, time, place, purpose. Then adverbs can also go ahead and describe other adjectives. Remember this very famous line? What was that? So beautiful, so elegant, just looking like a wow. So you notice beautiful, elegant, when you talk about a dress, they are adjectives. So what was that so there? It was acting as an intensifier for that adjective, right? Huh? Oh, remember right before the exams when you call a question very important, very, very important. Those very's are also acting as intensifiers there for an adjective. So they are adverbs. So in this particular case, you guys are absolutely right. I think most of you are right. The adverb here is constantly. Engage is a verb. That's a verb that is not an adverb. So New Delhi and Tokyo do what? They engage. How often do they engage? Constantly. So that is why this was an adverb. So in this case, Dishant, constantly is going to be more an adverb of frequency. Okay. So I just saw a couple of C's. So I guess, so Yash, I hope I have addressed your question. Dishant, yours too, and the rest of you anyway managed to get this right. So constantly was the answer, and with that, let me ask you the next question. So not exactly a part of speech, but what's your take? So it says engage is a verb, and those who describe, modify, describe, add to the meaning of a verb. Yeah, definitely that's called. So something that tells you more about the verb will be an adverb. Fantastic. A is indeed the right answer. So what are models? What are modal auxiliary verbs? I remember back in school, our teacher used to call them modals. Later on when I met him, I asked him and he said, यार क्लास में अगर मैं बोलता मॉडल तो तुम लोग मॉडल्स के बारे में सोचते और वो ये वाले मॉडल्स थोड़ी ना होने थे, तो मैं जानबूझ के गलत बोलता ताकि तुम्हारा ध्यान न भटके. Like little did he know that ध्यान तो पहले से भटका हुआ था सर. So what do models do? Models show our attitude towards a person or a piece of information. That's their basic job. Okay. So attitude towards a person is how polite or impolite we are. Attitude towards information is how certain or uncertain we are, or what kind of information this is. So remember all those words like can, could, may, might, would, and the one in this case is ought to. Yeah, absolutely. Sagar, would and should are definitely our model auxiliary verbs. When you add have, of course, you start using them in a particular way, but as models, you just put as would and should. Srish has written directive. Would not understand what exactly that would mean, but Radha Vinod, we haven't seen RC for the last 2 3 years. So, okay, what is the job of ought? That's a, this is an adjective. It's a preposition. Remember, ought is used to show moral obligation, duty of a kind where even if you do not fulfill it, there are no negative consequences for you. Okay, right. So here is the next one. Now I'm basically diving into fill in the blanks. So here is the first one. I don't know whether you are able to whether my camera is able to capture all this smoke coming out of my steaming cup or not, but here it is for you. In case you are also at a cool place, let's hope that this brings a bit of warmth. Hmm. Sipping on. Abhinami, they're like model auxiliary verbs are helping verbs, and helping verbs typically come before the main verb. Yes. Yes, the answer to question number 5 is indeed A. Most of you are getting it right. So this should work. What do I tell you about it now? She always has to hurry. So hurry is a verb. Has to is a model auxiliary or helping verb. This is an adverb of frequency. An adverb of frequency come before the verb normally. No? So you see, I often call him. So you notice coming before the verb. And let's say if I'm introducing a model, where would I put a model? Let's say I want to put in must. I must often call him, I often must call him. Typically comes after that adverb of frequency. Okay. So that was fifth. Here is sixth. So the correct answer is indeed A, and all of you have knocked it out of the park, barring one. It consists of. So A it is. And I would want you to basically know, you know what makes prepositions tricky? The problem with prepositions is that there are some basic things that you can learn about prepositions like in, on, at, but then beyond that, there is no formula here. So there's this concept called dependent or fixed prepositions. What it means is that a noun, a verb, an adjective is supposed to be followed by a preposition. So the preposition depends on the noun or the verb or the adjective that comes before it. And there is no logic, there is no rationale to it. So, for example, what is the preposition that we use after, say, agree? Hmm. Sahil, all that I can tell you here is that consists is an intransitive verb. And intransitive verbs cannot have an object coming after them, so you definitely need a preposition here. Okay, so agree to, agree with. Yeah, Atashi is even better. You agree to something. You agree with a person. You agree on or upon a price. So there is no formula here, right? So you either know or you don't. So whenever the examiner wants to see whether you are somebody who uses English in his day-to-day life or not, he gets into areas like prepositions. Okay, here is next. Why is my clicker not working? Batteries, please don't die on me now. Yes, yes, Sagar, I absolutely. Right before you actually, Atashi also shared it, so I started writing that basically. So yeah, that was absolutely correct. So, what is the preposition that we use after congratulate? That is the question, isn't it? So, the correct answer here is C, on. I know a lot of us are likely to get confused with for. The right one here will be on. So, let's see. So there are times when you congratulate somebody on or where you want to send your good wishes in the context of a happy event. So in that context, congratulate is followed by on. For example, if I meet somebody, I say, hey, congratulations on your marriage, congratulations on your new baby, congratulations on your promotion. So when I'm just sending my good wishes. Now, however, there is a context where you offer your congratulations as praise for a specific achievement. As praise, not as good wish, as praise for a specific achievement. In that context, we do at times use for. For example, congratulations for completing 100 days without an accident. Yeah, congratulations for saving our house from getting auctioned. So, but that's a very specific situation, right? So, in this case, you don't see a specific situation, and therefore you wouldn't really use for. You need to stick to using on. Here is the next one. This should be easy. Even if you use English not that frequently in your life, there's a very commonly occurring structure, and I hope you'd get this right. Yeah, absolutely correct, guys. It is indeed C, and therefore we can move on from this. Hmm. I think I need to change this to make it better. Unambiguous. So the correct answer here is going to be B, on time. Now, a lot of us have also chosen in time. So let us look at that as well. On time basically means at the scheduled time. Okay, whereas in time, if I say in time basically means before it is too late. Okay, so let's check. So let's begin with in time. So we use this expression to refer to activities that have some sort of deadline or a limited time period within which it needs to be completed. So let's look at some examples. How about he made it to the station in time for his train? In time is he reached the station before the train left. So in a way, he managed to made it before the deadline. He managed it before it was too late. On time, on the other hand, simply means activities that happen at an appointed time, appointed place, scheduled time. So, for example, if I talk about transportation, meetings, schedule, class schedule, all of these things, we generally say on time. So, if the class started on time, it means that it started at the time at which it was scheduled. If I say she arrived at the office on time, it means that typical starting time of the start of the office. So as scheduled. So here, when you say he has a reputation, then it basically means that he's somebody who definitely turns up right on the dot. So in this context, I definitely use on. However, in some other context, for example, check this out. Not asking you, but this is the kind of sentence where I'd prefer in, because there is no scheduled time here. The idea, the sense that I need here is before it is too late, and therefore in. But now taking you over to the next question. This bothers a lot of people and therefore is asked very frequently in the exam. We do not have anything called comprises of. We use of with consist, not with comprise. So the correct answer here is B. The book comprises 5 sections, which basically means comprise basically means made up of. Comprise, the meaning already has an of. For example, here is another word for you. The verb is investigate. Can I say that the police are investigating into the allegations? Can I say that? No, this into is superfluous here because investigating itself means looking into. So similarly, comprise already has this of and therefore we do not add an of with it. So I hope you are not going to make this mistake in the exams now for sure. And here is the next one. Identify the subject in the sentence. Yeah, the answer is C. This she and the other she. Both of these are subjects of their respective clauses. The paintings is an object, and in fact, in this context, I can also say it is the direct object of the verb show. Over the years is an adverb of time. And showed me, in this case, show is the verb, whereas here me is the indirect object in this particular verb. If I look at it purely from a part of speech perspective, me is a pronoun. Paintings are basically a noun, so that's the painting. That's how you look at it. So when you are asked about subject, we are talking about elements of sentence. So there are two basic ways in which we divide everything in English, right? So one is part of speech, which is a function based or a task based labeling, and the other is elements of sentence, where you typically use six core expressions, right? Sentence, subject, predicate, object, phrase, and clause. These six. Okay, here is, we've already dealt with this, so let's move over. Here is the next question. Now I am asking you for error identification. So somebody a little while ago said that, sir, take a class every day. So you notice for the last 4 days, this is our fourth day when I am with you every day. So there was a snap session, then there was a ZAT session, then something else. So I do take something or the other every day. In fact, tomorrow at 12, I started the series called 500 Most Important Questions for the Cat. But then you can join in, I'm sure. Even that will help you. Okay, the right answer here is C, because it should not be who thinks, it should have been who think. So you notice when you use who, which, or that as relative pronouns, then they do not, then are they singular, are they plural, particularly who, that's that singular, is that plural? Well, it all depends on the noun that it refers to. And which noun does it refer to? The noun that is close to it. So which noun is close to it? In this case it is people. And you know, people is plural, and therefore the who will also be considered plural. And when the subject is plural, the verb must also be plural. When you add an s or an es to a verb in simple present tense, you do that to make it singular. Remember, it's only when the subject is singular that you'd add s or es. So you'd say he talks a lot, but we say they talk a lot. So you add. So when the subject is singular, you add an s or an es. When the subject is plural or is I, of course, skip that. Right? So Aryan. अरे इसमें आर्यन इसमें ये पूछा था कि वो स्टैंडर्ड वाली स्ट्रक्चर किसमें है ग्रामर की, तो ग्रामर वाला सवाल हुआ ना. सो ही इज वन ऑफ दोज पीपल हु थिंक. Yeah, actually, yes, there is a problem with this as well. It should have been they who think they know everything. Oh, yeah, yeah. So if you've chosen C or D, both of them are going to be all right. So if you've marked any of these two, you should be fine. I think both of these have an issue. So C or D. I think, see, I'll tell you the problem that I faced. The moment I read this sentence and I reached here, I was like, okay, okay, मिल गया error, खत्म करो C. हाँ, जबकि सवाल भी कई बार गलत हो सकते हैं, मैंने ध्यान नहीं दिया. Okay, right. So here's the next one. Pick out the right where right basically means grammatically correct sentences. Hmm. So the correct answer here is option A. 1 and 2 are both right. The problem with third is that you notice painting. There is no article before it. You need to put an article. I have a glass with a painting on it. So, as a rule, a singular countable noun is supposed to have an article coming before it. So it's only as an exception that it won't have an article. Mostly it should. And in fourth, we needed to remove the with. So third and fourth are both have the result incorrect. First and second are fine, and that is why we should go ahead and choose A as our answer. Here is the next one. So when do we use this apostrophe? This apostrophe is used in some contractions, right? For example, when you write and, won't, those contractions. It is also rarely used to create plurals of individual digits and individual letters. Never forget to dot your I's and cross your T's. I don't remember his phone number, but I do recall that there were a lot of sixes in it. And then finally, it is used to show possession. Remember that ownership, right? This is Ravi's book. Fair enough. Now, in this case, the answer should be both are incorrect. Why? It is not a contraction. In this case, all that we do is we can show possession, but then you use that with a noun to show possession. In these two cases, 2 days, 2 day is an adjective. So the grammatically correct expression should be a 2 day visit. Remember, I found a 50 rupee note lying on the floor. So note, that is the noun. This is an adjective. Why would an adjective really use possession? Similarly, visit is a noun. 2 day is an adjective. You don't need it. In fact, even that S is wrong. So you just say a 2 day visit where technically 2 and day should have this hyphen in between. Jayant says difference. Okay, Nandita, I shall, I will. Nandita, both are right. Both are right. But if you want to know the difference, then here you go. We use shall with I and we, and we use will with everything else. But if you want to show promise, commitment, then what you do is then you swap. Then you use will with I and we, shall with everything else. So that is a different meaning. That makes the model auxiliary. Both are right. Then Jayant, I want to know what is the difference between Snap Crash Course series and 100 most expected snack questions. Uh, Jayant, both of them are aiming at giving you adequate practice for Snap. So Crash Course is a more structured series where all the faculty members got together, divided certain areas, and said, "Chalo, let's go ahead and do it every day." Whereas a 100-day thing is more on the individual. I have more flexibility. So when I talk to you guys and you tell me that, hey, Vikrant, yaar, can you focus on that area once? That's a session where I can do that. So I think both of them have the same end goal. The 100-day series that I take is more informal in nature. The crash courses, as the name suggests, course is a little more formal, serious. Right? Okay, so here you go. Next question. Choose the grammatically correct option. Anime art clan, it does not mean that I don't have a poker face. I can maintain a poker face at times. But yeah, there are times when you lead people into making a mistake, and that is fun. Everybody is right, yeah. You're absolutely correct. The correct answer is D. And since you've managed to get that right, I can skip the explanation. Here is the next one. So change the voice. Remember active voice, passive voice? ओ ओ अभी इसमें तो ऑप्शन ही डालना भूल गए. एक मिनट. एक मिनट दो यार जरा मुझे. Let me just check what happened. I thought that I did put in the options, but where did the options go? Give me a sec. Just 1 second, I'll check and I'll fix it. क्या हुआ इसे? एक सेकंड दो यार, एक सेकंड दो. नहीं तो तुम कर ही नहीं पाओगे इसे. I'm just adding the options, guys. Give me one brief second and I'll be with you once again. Okay, fixed it. And I'm bringing it back for you. Okay, here you go. So now can you... no, no, Sagar, that isn't right. So what's your take now? Since I also have to fix the slide on the next page. Uh, to go, what happened? Okay, so here is the answer. D. The problem with C is that you notice it is a question, and in a question, your helping verb comes before the subject. What is it doing after the subject? So that is the problem with C. A lot of you have also chosen B. Now notice when you go from active voice to passive voice, the voice changes, the tense does not change. So what is the tense here? You see the present continuous tense. So the passive voice of present continuous tense is so A and B, both of these are present perfect tenses. You can't change the tense. So A and B are ruled out at that juncture itself. Whenever you see a continuous tense, you have to have being in the passive voice. Without it, it can't work. Okay? Chale, here is the next one. Once again, change the voice. Question number 17 is another change the voice question. Okay, so here is the answer. Saroj has gotten this right. So let's look at A. Wine should be opened about 3 hours before. Now, forget this, just before you use it. Look at this. This is a clause. You use it. So you is the subject, it is the object. What do we do when we go from active to passive voice? Subject object flip flop. So if you do that, it should be it is used. So A just uses use. So it is not a passive voice. It's a paraphrasing. Similarly, if you look at it, B, same problem. C has managed to get the first clause right, but the second clause is still in active voice. The second clause has not been converted into passive. And that is why C is also wrong. D is the only one which converts both of them correctly into passive voices. Now this by you is optional here. So you notice the moment you convert into passive voice, you'd realize that it becomes an imperative sentence, right? So by you is optional. Okay, here is the next one. And this time around, change the narration. Go from direct to indirect speech. Should have been a full stop here. Let's start on that. Yep, the right answer is C, and I think everybody has managed to get this right. Okay, 19th is more of a conceptual question based on your understanding of direct and indirect here. So read this sentence and then tell me which one of the four should come into this blank or should be put into this blank. Hmm. Okay, so the right answer is B. So ago is indeed converted into before when you go from direct speech to indirect speech, and therefore A won't be right. You definitely need before. So that's what I brought for you today. Here is a quick look into what is coming your way now. So tomorrow, tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow you have a session at 7 p.m. by Gaurav sir on number system. A day after, the second part of logical reasoning by Saral sir. And you can consider enrolling in our OMAT batches if you are targeting any of these non-CAT exams thoroughly. And of course, on the day of the snap, we will see you with a detailed slot-wise analysis so that you can learn from it and get answers to some of those questions that worry us immediately after the slot is over. So that's it from me. If you liked working with me, don't forget to hit like on this session. And I look forward to meeting you guys in my next session in this series. Additionally, if you want some more practice, you can join me at 12 tomorrow, where I won't be working on grammar and vocabulary, but we will sneak in some paragraph based questions so that you get work, so that you get a bit of a work on parajumbles as well. Right? So see you there. Until then, have a great time and keep attending all these sessions.